The 32nd session of the Senate. In the first regular session of the 17th Congress is hereby called to order. Senator Richard Gordon will lead the chamber in prayer.
Thank you, Mr. President. Let us all put ourselves in the presence of God. Heavenly Father, our Creator, we praise and thank you for the dawn of this day that is the beginning of another new day of hope and accomplishment for our country. Lord, thank you for our hearts and minds and our five senses. Allow us to see with our minds, to hear with discernment, and touch others with our hearts. Please give us the gift of unity so we can work in harmony and altogether smell the air of success of the nation. All these we ask through your Son, Jesus Christ, our Redeemer. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Senator Gordon. Secretary, please call the roll.
Roll call of members. The Honorable Senator Sangara, Aquino, Binay, Cayetano, De Lima, Drilon, Ejercito, Escudero, Gatchalian, Gordon, Honasan, Hontiveros, Lacson, Digada, Pacquiao, Pangilinan, Po, Recto, Soto, Trillanes, Villanueva, Villar, Zuberi, Senate President Pimentel.
Thank you. With 23 senators present, the chair declares the presence of a quorum.
Thank you,
Majority
Mr.
Leader.
President. Mr. President, I move that we dispense with the reading of the Journal of the 31st Session, Monday, October 10, and consider the same as approved.
Is there any objection? There being none, the motion is approved.
Thank you, Mr. President. We'd like to acknowledge guests of Senator Cayetano. Wilfredo Pido Lalimarmo Jr. of Takbo, artist and musician. Jennifer Lagahit Taprosa of the OFW Global Movement Hong Kong Chapter, Duterte Cayetano Campaign Team of Hong Kong, and the guests of Senator Pacquiao, National PCL Executive Vice President Councilor Benito Brizuela of Lucena City, and National Executive Director of PCL Wilson Paclibar. I'd like to welcome them to the Senate, Mr. President.
Welcome to the Senate, to all of our guests.
Earlier, we had the Ambassador of France as guest of Senator Gordon, but he already left. Mr. President, I move that we proceed with the reference of business.
Is there any objection? There being none, the motion is approved.
Bills on first reading. 1193, an act providing for security of tenure for all casual and contractual employees of the government who have rendered the prescribed years of service in the national government agencies and the local government units and for other purposes, by Senator Joseph Victor Ejercito.
Referred to the Committee on Civil Service, Government Reorganization, and Professional Regulation.
1194, an act providing for the Magna Carta of student athletes, Senator Joel Villanueva.
To the Committees on Education, Arts and Culture, and Sports.
Resolutions. Resolution number 192, urging the Senate Committee on Social Justice, Welfare, and Rural Development to conduct an inquiry in aid of legislation on the implementation and economic effects of the Pantawid Pamilyang Filipino program, with the end in view of reviewing, amending, and improving the program to effectively bring about the lifting of the beneficiaries out of poverty, by Senator Cynthia Villar.
To the Committees on Social Justice, Welfare, and Rural Development, Economic Affairs, and Finance.
Number 193, resolution commending and congratulating Mark Anthony Giao for clinching the gold medal and for showcasing the caliber of the Filipino worker at the 11th ASEAN Skills Competition in Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia on September 19 to 29, 2016 by Senator Joel Villanueva.
To the Committee on Rules.
Additional reference of business. Bills on first reading, 1195, an act prohibiting the use of motor vehicles without mufflers or those that are defective or have been modified which increase the sound emitted by motor vehicles, penalizing owners and drivers that contribute to noise pollution in the environment, by Senator Win Gatchalian.
To the Committees on Public Services, Health and Demography, and Finance.
1196, an act providing for the improvement of maternal and childbirth services by establishing birthing centers and training traditional birth attendants and appropriating funds therefore, by Senator Win Gatchalian.
To the Committees on Health and Demography, Women, Children, Family Relations and Gender Equality, and Finance.
1197, an act defining extrajudicial killing, providing for its penalty and for other purposes, by Senator Laila de Lima.
To the Committee on Justice and Human Rights. Majority Leader.
Mr. President, may I be recognized on a matter of public interest and the personal privilege, Mr. President?
Is there any objection? Hearing none, Senator Soto is recognized to speak on a matter of public interest.
Mr. President, I move to adjourn the two sessions ongoing, one on the left and one on the right. Mr. President, my esteemed colleagues, not too long ago, we were treated to television and movie series that kept us glued to our seats, waiting for the next episode and unexpected turn of events. The trend then went towards reality shows. The more outrageous, the more challenging, the better for viewership and ad sales. Now, the latest blockbuster teleserye has gone to the halls of Congress, Mr. President, featuring real and true-to-life convicts telling stories about the life of the rich and famous behind prison walls. It is about them, Mr. President. Unbelievable, but true, Mr. President. To me, it is in essence a crime story. There may be plots, subplots, but really, it is a breakdown of our penitentiary system. Where in the world do we have convicts running the penitentiary? Right here, Mr. President, only in the Philippines. I know the expression, grandes malos, grandes remedios. Mr. President, great problems need great remedies. However, I stand before you today to propose a new strategy. Great problems, simple remedies. I have been monitoring closely the hearings of the House of Representatives on their Committee on Justice. Our Committee on Justice have been conducting hearings. They have already, I think, conducted 3 or 4 hearings. And it was concentrated on the issue of extrajudicial killings, as they call it. In the House of Representatives, they were concentrating on the drug trade in the National Bilibid prisons. Now, they have taken up many issues, many sidelights. But for me, there are 2 standouts in the issues that have been unearthed in the House of Representatives. Issues that I have been crying out loud all along. First, the untraceable SIM card registration. It is obvious now, Mr. President, and I'm talking about the mobile phones, particularly prepaid SIM cards, that any person could easily avail. It is the #1 tool of the drug dealers in the National Penitentiary. The use of a SIM card in aid of a crime is not a new story. We know very well that mobile phones have been used as countless times to perpetrate crimes such as bombing, kidnapping, fraud, drug trade, now, even in the national believed prisons, and many other crimes where communication is the key. This freedom of availing prepaid SIM cards and its effect could be felt even in a small community. Kung may kaaway ka, pwede kang bumili ng SIM card sa tindahan at mag-text ka ng kung ano-ano sa kaaway mo. Ayun ang nangyayari sa atin, Mr. President. As early as 1999 and all the way to the year 2000, when I was chairman of the Committee on Public Services in the Senate, we already asked the National Telecommunications Commission to look into the matter, and they agreed, and they issued a directive asking all telecom companies to register their prepaid SIM cards. The telecom companies went to the Supreme Court and was able to get a TRO, or a temporary restraining order. The temporary restraining order lasted for 2 decades, Mr. President. It has only been lifted a few years ago. And that is why here we are now. And obviously, through the hearings in the House, you can see now how important this issue is. I've been asked on why the telecoms refuse to register the prepaid SIM cards. They have so many reasons, but most of the reasons that they have expounded on are full of holes. Once they said, it is very difficult to register 100 million prepaid SIM cards. 100 million are all over the country now. Sabi ko, Mr. President, how can that be difficult when somebody in Sultan Kudarat who has a prepaid SIM card na wala ng load, hindi na niya nagagamit dahil kinakancel nyo. At pag naglagay siya ng load, alam ninyo. Pag naglagay na siya ng load, kahit saan lupalab ka sa Pilipinas, aandar yung cellphone mo o yung SIM card mo. Therefore, nakaregister ka sa kanila. Yung numero mo, ayaw lang nilang i-register. So, all the other reasons are invalid, Mr. President. I now call on our colleagues to make this a center of one of our pieces of legislation that we should come up in the 17th Congress, and if possible, as soon as possible. Some of our colleagues here have been victims of nasty texts, nasty comments, insults. Most of us. The other day, Senator Binay approached me and said, when are we going to register the prepaid SIM cards? Why? I received again a death threat. She told me that she received a death threat. The same thing with Senator De Lima. And all these texts come from prepaid SIM cards, untraceable. That is the reason that when a bomb explodes and a cell phone is used, the SIM card, even if could be recovered by the authorities, could not be traced. There's not even a starting point on where to investigate kung saan nabili yung SIM card na yun at sino bumili. Now, Mr. President, the second issue I want to bring out, and this is another point that was really raised in the hearings of the House of Representatives, is recent news events that had been confirmed in that hearings and proven that the failure of present treatment program and detention security measures of the Bureau of Corrections in the matter of containing and preventing high-level illegal drugs inmates from continuing their possession, trading, and trafficking of illegal drugs while under detention. Hence, Mr. President, I have filed a bill for the creation of a separate penal institution for high-level drug offenders. The objectives of this measure are, first, to keep the high-level illegal drug offenders in a separate penal facility and sever any existing influence on other inmates, and to provide the high-level drug offenders who are drug dependents themselves an effective drug rehabilitation program as an essential part of their reformation in preparation for their life outside of the penitentiary. Mr. President, I have been saying this for years, and obviously now it's what the congressmen have realized. I've heard most of them now saying that that is what we need to do, especially in the absence of a death penalty law. This is the best way to remove this problem. We can segregate them. Segregation is allowed by the Constitution, Mr. President. A specter is haunting our justice system. The existence of multi-million illegal drugs industries operated from inside the maximum security prison building of our national penitentiary. So, let's keep them away, Alcatraz style. Segregate them. They will not be able to operate. In the absence of a death penalty law, this is the best answer, Mr. President. As I said, big problems, we can come up with simple remedies. So, I hope we pay attention to these two outstanding problems, and we have two bills in the Senate, including three bills, including the bill of Senator Lacson, which states the same. And we have what we need. We do not need the advice of criminals. I've been hearing a House of Representatives asking the criminals what to do. We don't need the advice of the criminals, Mr. President. We know what to do. We know what should be done. Let's do it. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator Soto. What's the pleasure of Senator Lacson?
Thank you, Mr. President. Will the gentleman from Quezon City, the Honorable Majority Leader, yield to a few questions? First, I'd like to commend and congratulate the
Certainly,
gentleman
Mr.
for issuing a call to our colleagues to prioritize the passage of the bill filed by the gentleman and this representation, and Senator Legarda as well. I believe it was referred, or the bills were referred to the Committee on Public Services. And I just hope that sooner than later we'll be scheduling a hearing for the purpose. Now, my first question, Your Honor, is why would people be attracted to purchasing SIM cards?
Well, for SIM cards, for communication purposes, Mr. President.
No, because we can always purchase postpaid SIM cards.
Ah,
But why
you
would
mean
people be
prepaid?
attracted to purchasing prepaid SIM cards?
Okay, your question is on
My next
prepaid
question
SIM
is, and it's related to the first question, how many prepaid SIM cards do you have?
Okay. Perhaps the first answer, or the answer to the first question would be, it's easily procured. You can buy it in any sari-sari store. And it's untraceable. The answer to the next question, I have no prepaid SIM card, Mr. President.
Good to hear that, because I suppose the other reason for purchasing SIM card, aside from the convenience, is you're doing some foolishness.
Yes, Mr. President, I'm glad that I am the author of the book entitled Clean Living.
My next question is, what does SIM stand for? It is an acronym for what?
You caught me there, Mr. President. There is-
Subscriber Identity Module card, Mr.
Thank you
President.
for the information, Mr. President. Subscriber
Identity Module.
identity module.
Now, assuming that we pass these bills, pending in the committee of Senator Grace Po, what will happen to the prepaid SIM cards already out in the market, in the possession of purchasers?
My proposal, Mr. President, is that the telecom companies text blast these prepaid SIM cards and tell them to register in their barangays. At the very least, in the barangays. If they do not respond within, say, 30 days or 60 days, and this can be included in the IRR that can be presented after our bill is passed. No? If they do not respond, then you cut it off.
How can you cut off when there are no records, Mr. President?
No, they can.
It's over the counter.
No, they can, Mr. President. That's the secret. Eh. They have registered, they have these numbers registered. As a matter of fact, kahit saan ka pumunta sa Pilipinas, pag bili mo ng SIM card, kahit na nung 1 taon pa yung SIM card mo, kung walang laman, hindi umaandar. Alam nila. Pero oras na nag-load ka, magagamit mo. Alam nila. Therefore, nakaregister ka. Naka-register yung SIM card. The number is registered. Therefore, all of these numbers, they can text blast easily. These 100 million SIM cards. Kung 100 million ng prepaid SIM cards, I mean. By the way, Mr. President, the other concern they mentioned, or the other reason they said, is that there are people who complain that their right to privacy will be invaded. Their right to privacy will be invaded if they have to register their prepaid SIM card. And my answer to that is, what about us postpaid SIM cards? We have no right to privacy? Only prepaid SIM cards holders have the right to privacy?
In other words, Mr. President, the constitutionality, once we pass this into law, there's no constitutional infirmity involved.
Yes, I
And the
believe so, Mr.
telcos
President.
cannot go to the Supreme Court to question the constitutionality of the law, assuming that we pass it.
I suppose so, Mr. President, and perhaps that's the reason why the Supreme Court lifted the TRO finally.
So what personal information should appear when we register our prepaid SIM card, Mr. President?
Well, I believe a verified identification is enough. You don't need a passport, perhaps a passport, an ID, any government ID, driver's license, anything that can register. Because the important thing is that there is a starting point, Mr. President. Pwede nila sabihin, yung SIM card nanakaw eh. Nanakaw lang yung SIM card ko, kaya hindi ako gumamit yan. Again, the police has a starting point. Saan ka nanakawan? Saan nanakaw yung cellphone mo? Kailan nanakaw? At least may starting point ng paghahanap kung pinagmulan na yon. Samantalang sa ngayon, bulag na bulag po tayo. Yung bombing sa Makati, yung bombing sa Davao, lahat po halos ng bombing lately, kung hindi ko nagkakamali, mga 90% ng mga bombings, ang cellphone po ang ginamit, pan-trigger. And prepaid SIM card ang nakakabit at prepaid SIM card ang pinang-trigger. They can trace saan yun. Matitrace nila anong cell site ang gamit nung nag-trigger at anong cell site ang nagamit nung sumabog. But blank na sila pagdating doon. Hanggang doon lang ang kaya ng authorities. Because the prepaid SIM cards are not registered.
Anyway, Mr. President, I'm in full agreement. I cannot agree more. We should really pass this piece of legislation because, well, I would like to share with you my experience while I was with law enforcement. No? We're having a hard time tracing calls from kidnappers, no? Using prepaid SIM cards because there's no identity. There's no way to trace the owner of the SIM card. So I just hope that our distinguished colleague, Senator Grace Poe, will immediately schedule a hearing so we can report this out on the floor and deliberate on this measure, and so we can pass this legislation. Thank you, Mr. President, and thank you to the gentleman.
Thank you, Senator Lacson.
Recognize Senator Gordon, Mr. President, and then Senator Zubiri.
Senator Villar.
Senator Villar.
Okay, Senator Gordon is recognized.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Will the gentleman yield, gentleman, the Majority Floor Leader?
Certainly to my schoolmate, Mr. President.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. The obvious intent of your proposal and it is mine also, because I have filed a bill on this, is to really put a handle on accountability. Tama po ba yan?
Correct.
In other words,
Yes.
pagka meron kang SIM card, hindi porke may SIM card ka, you have the right to have a SIM card, but you also have a duty to be accountable. For example, mate-trace po yan, katulad na sinabi nyo, pagka may nagpaputok ng bomba, di po ba?
Opo.
Ang kaibahan lang po ata na sinasabi nyo, o yung inyong objective, is that you will make them register sa barangay. Is that correct? If I want to be sure about that.
Yes, for the existing SIM cards. Because when we took this up in one of the hearings that was conducted by the Committee on Public Services, the telecom companies, the telecommunication companies, said that they can do it for prospectively.
Yes.
And cannot retroactively do it. But I said, why not? They said it'll be difficult to register 100 million. I said, you know, it's registered in your number, in your database. It is registered in their database. All they have to do is text blast and say you register. If you do not register, we will cut you off.
Good point, Mr. President, because I believe that if there is an objective on our part to make sure that we inculcate or exact accountability, dapat yung ring nagtitinda ng SIM card all the way from the retailer all the way to the owner of the company must have accountability, because if something catastrophic happens, at least there will be a starting point.
Correct.
For people to trace who it belongs to.
Correct, sir.
And if we do not do that, do you believe that we are creating a culture of impunity where people can just text people, threaten them, go onto into their privacy and do all kinds of things so that you create practically a culture of impunity where nobody is responsible for their acts? Do you agree with me on that? Yeah.
Precisely what is happening now. I do agree with you.
Thank you. Having said that, so there would be really no reason for there would be no expense really on the part of the telcos to put in this additional feature that when they buy, they can actually register the card for those who are about to buy or get new cards. And the only thing that they would have to do by way of expense is to catch those that have already gotten SIM cards and they want to be loyal to that number, so that eventually all this will be now registered by the telcos. And that if we need to reckon with some malnefarious activities or nefarious activities, you will be able to trace right away.
Yes, correct, Mr. President.
Then, Mr. President, I'd like to commend the gentleman from the Majority Floor Leader, who I believe we share the same objective, inculcating accountability and making sure our country will be safe, because after all, that is part of our responsibility. Like I said, I have my own bill. We would again ask the Committee on Public Services to facilitate, with all due respect, the hearings on this matter so that we could put a stop to this growing culture of impunity and danger upon our country. Thank you very much, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. President, and thank you to the gentleman from Zambales.
Senator Villar.
I will yield to the lady senator.
Senator Villar is recognized.
I would like to manifest my support to this bill of requiring the registration of SIM cards by subscriber, because it is a bad experience for us in Villar Foundation. Everybody is texting everybody that they won a house and lot from Villar Foundation, and we have no such thing. And the problem is they're asking money from the winners to give them money to be able to claim the prize. And I had to reimburse so many people because they gave money to claim the prize. So I'm very supportive of the bill of Senator Gordon, Senator Soto, and Senator Ping Lacson. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senator Subiri, Mr. President.
Senator Subiri is recognized.
Mr. President, mine is just a manifestation of support. I completely agree totally with the statements, the views of the Honorable Majority Floor Leader. Mr. President, not only can we help solve crime with terrorism as well, the bombing incident in Davao, the detonation was done through a cell phone unit, and if we can actually get the numbers, if it was properly registered, we would have a lead on the terrorists that perpetrated that crime, Mr. President. Also, as mentioned by Senator Villar, not only is it being used for scams, it is also being used as a tool for threats. Many of us here have received death threats one way or another, one form or another, using these type of prepaid cell phones. And I can clearly recall when I was a congressman, when I was receiving these type of threats, I had contacted SMART because it was a SMART number. And the answer of SMART to me was, this is a prepaid number. We do not have the information of the owners of these cell phones, although we can triangulate. So they were able to tell me the locations where these texts were sent. But unfortunately, the locations are such a large area. This particular location was in the Commonwealth area in Quezon City, where millions of people live. So useless din po. So I am in full support of this, Mr. President. I would like to request also the chairperson of the Public Services Committee to hear it, and definitely she'll get full support from this representation. Thank you very much, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator Subiri. Senator Drilon is recognized.
Will the gentleman yield just a few questions?
Certainly, Mr. President.
Mr. President, in other jurisdictions, would the SIM card be registered?
Yes, Mr. President. The Philippines is the only one in this part of the world. As a matter of fact, even in Europe and in the Americas, you have to register when you buy a prepaid SIM card. Anywhere in Asia, Singapore, Hong Kong, Malaysia, you have to present a passport or an ID. You have to sometimes they even ask for a credit card. It's like a postpaid card, Mr. President, when you buy abroad. It's only in the Philippines that you can buy a prepaid SIM card in a sari-sari store.
And when you receive the message from a prepaid SIM card, would the sender be identified or only the number?
Only the number, Mr. President, unless you know that number and you have registered it in your phone.
Now, if you don't, can you inquire from the telephone company who sent the message? Since it is now registered?
You can indeed inquire, but I doubt if they will give you the person behind it. They would not know because it would not be registered with them.
No.
The number will only be registered, yes.
If the number, assuming that we pass the bill that you sponsor, which I would like to place on record we are supporting, would the recipient of the scam or the spam or the message be identified in your phone?
Not in your phone, but with the telecom company.
So you will still receive the number, just the number?
Yes.
All right. Now, and this is in other jurisdictions, the registration of the SIM card is automatic when you purchase the SIM card.
The same thing happens, Mr. President, except that in those jurisdictions, they are registered.
And would you be required to go to court in order to know the identity of the sender?
I would not have the answer to that, Mr. President.
In your proposed measure, Mr. President, would you have to go to court if you want to know who sent the message?
I do not think it is contained in my proposed bill. We can consider that. We may be able to consider that. But, as a matter of fact, if we do not include it in the bill, it may be included in the IRR.
if there is no basic...
May I know the intent of the gentleman?
Well, because
would you
when I-
want it to be easy to
No, when I receive a libelous message or a threatening message, and I only see the number, how do I trace who committed this this offense, this crime?
I don't think we should make it difficult, Mr. President. I think we should leave it to the discretion of the telecom company. May I check on the section 10 of my bill?
Please, yes.
I have something to that effect, but let me... All right. Section 10 is disclosure of information. Notwithstanding these provisions of Section 9, and Section 9 is confidentiality. No? The mobile phone service provider shall be required to provide information contained in the SIM card registration only upon order of a competent court upon finding of probable cause that a particular number is used in the commission of a crime or that it was utilized as a means to commit an unlawful act. Although, well, it seems that the answer to your question is yes.
We have to go to court.
You have to go to court unless you would want to make this easier.
Because, for example, if a threat is made on me through my phone, what I see is the number. How do I file a case of grave threat against the author of the message? When I do not know who to charge, I go to the Department of Justice. Who is the respondent?
Thinking out loud, Mr. President, perhaps what we can do is to amend Section 10 of my proposed measure and make the NTC instead of the courts. That'll be easier. Make the NTC the institution that will ask the telco. We can go to the NTC, complain, and the NTC can look automatically and ask the telco on who owns the number. Kesa sa court, dahil alam ko, pagka court, matatagalan po. Sabihin mo.
How? Because, you know, I agree with the purpose of your bill, but I'm trying to test how effective it is to achieve the objective that we seek in passing this legislation.
You are right.
If the number is kept confidential,
Wala din.
wala rin mangyayari.
Yeah. You're right, Mr. President. I agree. I will definitely look into Section 10. May we recognize Senator Subiri?
Senator Subiri wants to join the discussion. Mr. President,
I yield the floor to Senator Subiri.
thank you, Mr. President.
You have to
Mr.
ask my
President,
permission.
if I may, I was going to ask the permission of the Senate President Pro Tem. Just really quickly, maybe we can add a mechanism to the law or to the bill wherein the NTC, tama po yung, I like the direction of the Senate Majority Floor Leader. We can have the NTC come up with a grievance center. Similar to the Lemon Law that we passed. We passed the Lemon Law last year, wherein the DTI has a bureau or a department or part of the DTI looks into complaints of items that are under the auspices of the Lemon Law, which is the faulty items. So we can probably do that with the NTC.
Whatever is the mechanism, my view,
Thank you,
Mr.
Mr.
President, is that we must have a way of knowing who owns the message that is sent to us, because the cause of action is based on the message sent. We all complain about, you know, we get bombarded with death threats, with all kinds of
Scams.
crazy scam. Senator Villar talks about the scam. But how would you provide the remedy when in fact the name remains confidential? So there must be a mechanism, whether the NTC or the courts or whoever, but there must be a mechanism by which the identity of the sender is known because that is the whole purpose of having it registered.
Thank you, Mr. President. As early as now, and I'm sure we will be referring these interpellations in the privilege speech to the Committee on Public Services, I will definitely look into Section 10 and include the concern of the distinguished gentleman from Iloilo, the President Pro Tem. I agree. I concur, Mr. President.
Now, why is this being resisted, Mr. President?
Well, your guess is as good as mine. I really don't know because the reasons that they have been using.
At least for the record, what does the record indicate to be the justification for resisting this measure?
I don't know, Mr. President. I can only guess. And one time I heard in one of the hearings, I think it was a local government official who said something to the effect that baka daw we should ask the BIR to attend our hearings at baka daw hindi nare-register yung mga SIM cards na to sa tindahan lang binibili, baka hindi alam ng BIR at hindi na mo monitor.
Well,
Something to that effect.
I doubt it, Mr. President. These are publicly listed companies and they would not dare do something foolish as understating their income for purposes of taxation.
There is another thing that we have to look into, no? With that point in mind. I was told that it is not the telecom companies who sell the prepaid SIM cards. They have an agency or
A subsidiary. A subsidiary.
A subsidiary that sells it for them. Baka nandoon ang twist, baka nandoon ang problema. Anyway, going back to the other point of the gentleman, perhaps what we can do, no, and I will look into Section 10, what we can pattern it out after the existing service of the LTO. You know, where you can text the plate number of the car and with the LTO and reply to your message, the name of the registered owner of the car will appear. Merong service ang LTO ang ganun yan eh. So pwede natin sigurong gawin with NTC, of course.
Whatever it is, Mr. President, we would leave that to the technical working group. The point is the consumer must be must be given the opportunity to precisely know who is the sender and should be there should be a mechanism by which the name of the sender should be known. Otherwise, you'll just have a frustrated citizenry where the law is ineffective to protect their rights. But in any case, just to go back to my previous question, you're saying that there is nothing in the committee hearings which would indicate the reason for the resistance to this measure.
None, Mr. President. I can only guess, as I said earlier.
All right. Thank you, Mr. President, and let me thank the gentleman from Quezon City, the good sponsor, for yielding the floor to us for your questions.
Thank you, Mr. President. It's my
Thank you,
pleasure, Mr.
Senator
President.
Dillon. Senator Gatchalian is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just have a very quick manifestation and also a few questions lang. I remember my stint in Congress, I also filed the same bill, and in fact, that same bill, the registration of the prepaid SIM card, was approved in the lower house. And I had this opportunity of being invited by no less than our majority floor leader to share our thoughts and the details of the bill approved in the lower house. I remember in that research also, Africa had problems with terrorism, and the whole African continent passed a resolution urging their fellow African countries to pass a law to be strict in registering prepaid SIM cards. So even the continent, the entire continent of Africa, has now a law requiring their citizenry to register their prepaid SIM cards. Also in that statistics, I remember, there are about, in our country, the Philippines, there are about 110 prepaid SIM cards. Kaya ho dito, kahit na yung sanggol, may prepaid SIM card. No? So, talaga hong marami hong
Again,
double.
sorry.
Parang nabasa ko,
I didn't get that, Mr. President.
110 million floating prepaid SIM cards at any given time. No, I said 110 po. If our population is 100, including infants and child, then you can, parang meron pong prepaid SIM card po yung mga bata at sanggol. That's in the research that we called during the deliberation of the said law. But my question, Majority Floor, is if ever this bill gets approved and is passed by Congress and the Senate, which department will enforce this bill?
Well, the NTC, Mr. President, that will be under the Department of Communications.
The newly created Department of Information and Communications Technology.
Yes, offhand, that is how I look at
I
it,
don't know
Mr.
if the Majority Floor Leader remembers, during that hearing here in the Senate, the person who represented the telcos is Attorney Salalima, who is now the Secretary of the ITC.
And they were against.
They were against. In fact, you scolded them, I remember. Natakot rin po ako when you scolded them, but I remember you really put emphasis on the security and also the harassment being conducted using the prepaid SIM card. But at that time,
In that case,
I don't know if you remember, Majority Floor,
yes,
but
I do remember now. In that case, Mr. President, it's a good thing that Secretary Salalima will pass the Commission on Appointments first.
But I think that's something to ponder upon, Mr. President, and
yes.
I'm in full support of the registration of prepaid SIM card, and in fact, this is really one of the modern gadgets now being used by terrorists all over the world. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator Gatchalian. Senator De Lima is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. President. This is both a manifestation and interpellation. So would the Majority Floor Leader yield?
Certainly, Mr. President.
Thank you. I'm here to express my appreciation and also to throw in my support to the bill requiring mandatory registration, even of prepaid SIM cards. I'm a clear victim of this hate messages and even death threats, especially from the time that that House committee has recklessly revealed my cell phone number. Up to last night, I've been receiving those nasty texts, including death threats, and some of those numbers, whom I know are really prepaid, were also calling me. But I would, of course, not pick up. I would not, of course, answer them. So I'm throwing my full support to that bill. And let me also add that this particular bill, in my view, because I expressed this already, I expressed an opinion then in my capacity of Secretary of Justice that this will be perfectly justified under the exercise of the police power of the state. So even if there is a contract here between the subscribers, the buyers of the SIM cards on one hand, and the telcos companies, the service providers on the other hand, that contract can very well yield and be subservient to the police power of the state, because certainly there is a compelling state interest here, fighting criminality, fighting terrorism, when we so demand for the exercise of police power, subject, of course, to the proper safeguards against possible abuse or misuse of the information that may be gathered from a mandatory registration of the SIM cards. So this is perfectly valid. I can always share with the proponents of the bill my views on the matter as I articulated and put in writing when I was asked for my opinion on the matter. Second, with respect to the proposal of the Majority Floor Leader for a separate detention facility for the hardcore drug convicts hardcore, high-profile drug lords or drug convicts. In principle, I also support that. But may I just ask whether the majority floor leader is aware of the plan to transfer the Bilibid from its current location to Fort Magsaysay in Nueva Ecija? Because we pushed for that when I was still with the DOJ and the executive department. The president has, former president has supported it. And even if initially the current president was not for it, I understand from Secretary Aguirre that the president now has actually given also a go signal for that plan to transfer to a new facility in Laur, in Fort Magsaysay, Nueva Ecija. So is the majority floor leader aware of that? Because while he is proposing some kind of a Alcatraz-like facility, which I think is not necessary, because an Alcatraz-like facility is a rejection of the restorative philosophy behind our correctional system. I would still push for a separate detention facility within that new facility that would be constructed in the Fort Magsaysay area, because really I do believe that the problem as to the ills in the Bilibid prison boils down to the problem of severe congestion. Severe congestion is the root cause of prison-based criminality, including this, all of these criminal acts being engaged in, or criminal activities engaged in by this high-profile drug convicts. So segregation really is important. Classification of inmates on the basis of their needs, on the basis of their the nature of the offense for which they were punished or incarcerated.
Mr. President, for the record, I know of the plan, that in answer to the distinguished lady, I know of the plan to transfer Muntinlupa, or the National Bilibid Prisons, to Fort Magsaysay in Laur, Nueva Ecija. As a matter of fact, even before that, I was proposing, it was during the time of President Estrada, I was proposing that we should remove the National Bilibid Prisons there, and yes, and regionalize it. Let me go first to the Muntinlupa issue. I was thinking then that if we remove it, the NBP, the government can make a lot of money selling the entire area to universities and make it a university belt. It will be a growth corridor, Mr. President, instead of having the convicts and the criminals there. But my proposal then was for a regional penitentiary. Senator Relon knows this. Either he was chairman of finance or the Senate President then, when I submitted to him a study from the University of the Philippines wherein it says that the best way to handle the prison system in the Philippines is to regionalize it. Because based on research, itong mga nakukulong na preso, lalo na yung mga bagong preso, oras na hindi na dinadalaw ng pamilya, doon na nag-uumpisang magloko. Nagiging tarantado na, sumasali na rin sa mga gang at kung ano-ano ginagawa ng kagaguhan, pagka hindi na dinadalaw. Pero pag dinadalaw, iba ho ang dating. Eh ngayon, kung taga-Sultan Kudarat, nakulong sa Muntinlupa, how do you expect them to visit the family even once a year? Baka hindi kaya. Kaya po yung study na yun ay maganda na dapat i-regionalize. Kaya medyo I agree with Fort Magsaysay, but medyo nalulungkot ako ng konti, Mr. President, because they should have instead studied regionalizing instead of that. Mas madali pa po yung sinasabing segregation. Now, going to the issue that I brought up earlier, let me describe the context of why I was proposing an Alcatraz type Sa media naman ang sabing Alcatraz eh. Ako, ang sabi ko po, ibang klase. Basta isegregate yung mga high-level drug traffickers. Because there is no death penalty. My issue is, originally, I am for the reimposition of the death penalty for high-level drug trafficking. Now, for the record, in the 9th Congress, I was the principal author of the reimposition of the death penalty for drug trafficking. And as a matter of fact, I sponsored and delivered a turno and contra speech to Senator Joey Lina's proposal of life imprisonment to 30 years. Yun yung proposal niya nung una. But I delivered a turno and contra and proposed instead and sponsored reimposing the death penalty for high-level drug trafficking. Kaya lang, during the period of amendments, nadagdagan na, dumami na. Karoon na ng kung ano-ano mga crimes na sinama. But nevertheless, what happened, Mr. President, is that after I came back to the Senate in 2010, I was having second thoughts on the death penalty. And I was trying to find a solution na wag ko nang i-push uli. Sapagkat nakita ko po na may mga instances na talagang death sentence tapos talagang inosente. I have seen 1 or 2 cases na ganun eh. Kaya nakakatakot nga. I agree with them na nakakatakot. But in place of death penalty, kaya death penalty for the high-level drug traffickers, nakita nyo naman yung ginagawa eh. Nakakulong na, nag-ooperate pa eh. Nakakulong na, nag-ooperate pa eh. Konektado ito sa dalawang issue natin because ang sabi ni JB Sebastian, tinanong siya kahapon, kung wala kayong telepono, ano magagawa niyo pa ba ito? Ang sagot niya, hindi. In other words, Mr. President, according to the drug dealers in the National Bilibid prisons, no phone, no business.
Yes.
Pag sinegregate mo sila, no cell site. Hindi mo na kailangan ng jammer. No cell site, no telephone, no nothing. I will be... Mas mabait pa nga yun kaysa sa death penalty, pero mas maganda yon. Kaya nyo silang mabulok doon sa kulungan, pero nakahiwalay sila. At hindi nila ma-influensaan at hindi nila mabentahan yung mga ibang mga inmates na nalululong na rin later on sapagkat for one reason or another. So, that is the reason, Mr. President, to the distinguished lady from Bicol, that is the reason that I proposed to segregate them, the high-level drug trafficking convicts, because I could not. I was having second thoughts on reimposing the death penalty for them, for high-level drug traffickers. And besides, Mr. President, the law cannot be retroactive. Therefore, prospective lang. Kung i-reimpose natin ang death penalty, para lang doon sa mga magiging convicted high-level drug trafficking in the future, but not now. Therefore, lahat itong mga nakakulong na ito na mga high-level drug dealers, hindi rin ma-meet ng death penalty like what the other people would like to do. So that is the reason that I want them segregated. Kung pwede, isang island sa kung saan lupalop. Baka nga pwede, doon na sa island na nakaharap sa West Philippine Sea. Para sila maunang lusubin, just in case. That is the reason, Mr. President, Madam Senator.
With the permission of Senator De Lima, just one question to the majority leader so we'll not lose the trend of thought.
Senator Dillon is recognized.
If,
No
with the
problem,
permission.
Mr. President.
Yes, I note with interest the proposition of the majority leader that in lieu of death penalty, if we can provide for a separate facility segregated from the rest for drug cases,
Inmates, yeah. So, inmates.
impose life imprisonment without parole, and segregate them. And to me, this can be done retroactively because you are not imposing, you are not changing the penalty.
Correct.
It's still life imprisonment if it's life imprisonment, except that you change the facility. Now, if that kind of a provision can be inserted in the whatever that death penalty bill that will come up for debate, would the gentleman from Quezon City vote against the reimposition of death penalty if there is this provision?
If there is this provision and it is done, most probably, Mr. President.
Yeah,
As I said, I am already having second thoughts.
so there is a chance that the gentleman will vote against the reimposition of the death penalty under these conditions.
Yeah, under these conditions, yes, Mr. President.
Thank you very much, Mr.
Mr. President, I'm actually very happy
Senator De Lima is
that
recognized.
the President Pro Temp is able to extract that statement from the good majority floor leader about his change of mind. It's possible change of mind about the death penalty. We need not push for the death penalty if we truly fix our criminal justice system and our correctional system. And talking about the correctional system, I'm also for the regionalization of the prison facilities. And we can start that with the transfer of the new Bilibid prison to that new facility that would cater for the prisoners within Luzon, for example. And then put up later other detention facilities for purposes of catering to prisoners in the other areas in Visayas and in Mindanao. That is one way of decongesting, that is one way of reforming our penitentiary system. And added to that, aside from regionalization, I've been pushing also for a unified penitentiary system, because we have varied penitentiary systems now, one system for the convicted prisoners and another system for the detention prisoners. I think it's time also to consider the unification of our penitentiary system to avoid overlapping of jurisdictions, conflict of jurisdictions, turf wars between and among relevant agencies of government. So those are among the possible legislative solutions to the well-entrenched, deep-seated, long-standing problems and ills besetting our correctional system. So segregation, yes, within those facilities, segregation of hardened criminals as against the ordinary inmates, and of course proper implementation, proper enforcement by incorruptible prison officials and prison guards. Then going back to the issue, Mr. President, about the use of cell phones in the Bilibid, not only in the National Bilibid Prison, it's also prevalent in other detention facilities, even under BJMP, because cell phones are considered the most valuable commodity in any detention facilities, because access to cell phones would mean access to their cohorts outside the prison. So not just addressing about the registration of SIM cards, but also how to enforce a complete, absolute ban on the use of cell phones within the penitentiary, especially Bilibid. I've been trying when I was the Secretary of Justice. That was a very clear and strict rule on my part, the ban on the entry and the use of cell phones. But obviously, or apparently, because of corruption, because of the connivance of certain prison guards, kaya po hindi naiiwasan o hindi naaalis yung problema na yan tungkol sa paggamit ng cell phones within the facility. So, reforms indeed are necessary.
Thank you. Mr. President, yes, I agree. But removing the cell sites or the cell site near the penitentiaries would be one solution. As I said, if we segregate them, no cell site whatsoever. Because, you see, even if you were able or if you were successful during your time as SOJ, do not allow cell phones inside the penitentiary, the prison guards have cell phones.
Exactly.
All they have to do is bribe the prison guard. They can use the same guard. And these prison guards are paid 12,000 a month, Mr. President. Bigyan mo ng 20 million, nanginginig yun. Sa tuwa, Dahil pagagamitin lang niya yung cellphone, sandali, sabihin niya, tawagan ko lang yung asawa ko. 1 minute lang paggamit. Ito, 20 mil. You think he will not succumb to that? Kaya po importante, walang cell site. Pati mga gwardya, kahit magdala sila ng 100 cellphone, hindi nila makagamit. That's another thought,
In
Mr.
relation
President.
to that, that is why we pushed for the Bucor Modernization Law. So it was enacted into law in 2013, although the implementing rules and regulations have been recently adopted. And that's why we pushed for that, because of the very meager salary or compensation level on the part of the prison guards compared to their counterparts in the BJMP. So it's time for full implementation of the Bucor Modernization Law. And going back to the death penalty, and that is why this representation has filed an alternative bill, Qualified Reclusion Perpetua Bill, increasing the number of years for reclusion perpetua from 30 years to 40 years, also without the possibility of parole. We can do it. We can address the problems besetting the criminal justice system and the correctional system without resorting to death penalty. Thank you very much, Mr.
Thank you.
President.
Thank you, Mr. President. By the way, I was given the assurance by Senator Grace Poe, that the Committee on Public Services will prioritize the issue on SIM card registration, Mr. President.
Yes. Senator Poe is recognized.
Yes, Mr. President, we will actually, I just wanted for the record that we will prioritize the 5 different bills on SIM card registrations filed by Senators Gatchalian, of course, Senator Soto, Senator Gordon, Senator Lacson, and Senator Legarda. I believe that when it comes to safety issues, eradicating criminality and terrorism, this will be a big help. So yes, sometime in November. I'm pretty sure it was Senator Gatchalian, or it could be Villanueva. Either way, I will prioritize this measure. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank
Mr.
you.
President, by the way, for the record, I would like to manifest that Senator Manny Pacquiao is a co-author of Senate Bill number 7, Mr. President. Thank you. Mr. President,
Can I be made a co-author as well?
Senator Pacquiao is recognized.
and
as a
Senator
co-author.
Subiri likewise be made co-author, Mr.
The
President.
late Senator Subiri is recognized as well.
I had to irrigate.
Yeah. May we recognize Senator Ontiveros, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. President. To the good majority leader, in relation to one of the points you raised, in relation to your main bill, yung tungkol po dun sa paglilipat ng mga inmates ng Bilibid dun po sa Nueva Ecija. I share your concern, Mr. President, that we need to decongest Bilibid to improve our congestion rates. New Bilibid prisons report a congestion rate of 181%, with more than 23,000 prisoners staying in a facility built originally for a maximum of 9,000 inmates. So I would like to seek the wisdom of the President and the author. Would it be possible that executive clemency be considered for those in their old age or those terminally ill on humanitarian grounds? If that were something that could be considered, then inmate records could be reviewed for the purpose of granting parole to the deserving and releasing of those who have actually served their sentences already. Thank you, Mr. President.
Yes, Mr. President, why not? I believe so, especially to those who are, 80 years old or above. I agree. We should look into it, Mr. President.
Thank you so much for that openness, Mr. President. Good author.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator.
Mr. President, I move that we refer my manifestations, my privileged speech, and the ensuing interpellations to the Committee on Public Services and the Committee on Justice, Mr. President.
There's a motion, any objection? Hearing none, the privileged speech of Senator Soto, as well as the interpellations thereon, are referred to the Committees on Public Services and Justice.
Mr. President, I move that we recognize Senator Richard Gordon.
Senator Gordon is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, Majority Floor Leader. Mr. President, I rise on a point of collective privilege. This afternoon, the ambassador from France was here and made a courtesy call. We did not discuss anything about a pending issue that was held this afternoon, but I had already manifested earlier this afternoon that I was going to see this French ambassador. It involves the issue of a product for vaccination made by a French company called Sanofi, one of the biggest and most respected corporations, drug corporations in the world. And because I do not want to have any color and I want to have transparency, I thought I'd rise now and not tomorrow, but today, just to obviate any hint that there was some effort on the part of anybody to try and influence my decision today in standing up here. The issue involved, Mr. President, is about the sudden decision made in the latter weeks of the previous administration. Sometime in December 22, 2015, the FDA suddenly approved a dengue vaccination to be implemented in the Philippines. Mr. President, on the same day, the Secretary of Health at that time said that we are still waiting for the pre-qualification guidelines from the World Health Organization. Now, Mr. President, before any medicine or any vaccine can be introduced, the rules of the World Health Organization require, or if you will, suggest strongly that it pre-qualify. And Mr. President, unfortunately, the pre-qualification by the government, by WHO, which is a standard procedure to ensure that vaccines purchased by the UN and government procurement agencies are safe and effective, never materialized. It has not been pre-qualified up to this time. That is not the only issue in this particular scenario, Mr. President. The other issue is, of course, we have about 200,000 cases of dengue every year. Now, of course, as you all know, we represent the Red Cross as well as chairperson, and we provide a lot of blood from the Red Cross, and which is the biggest defense against the dengue virus, Mr. President. But the real issue here is that it was done post-haste, Mr. President. It started on December 22 when the FDA approved it. By March, by February 11, 2016, the Philippines hosted the global launch of Dengvaxia, Mr. President, which is a dengue immunization medicine. I will just pause for a while to let my friends on the other side of the hall, Mr. President, calm down a bit, because I do not talk. I do not want to interrupt while they're talking, Mr. President. Thank you. These are all my friends, so I can be nice to them at any time. So having said that, Mr. President, so hard sometimes to speak because I'm speaking extemporaneously. I'm trying to collect my mind so that I can be cogent. And because of that, Mr. President, by March, the OH started vaccination, Mr. President. But in fact, there was a vaccination that occurred sometime earlier than that. But never mind, I will not go into that anymore. In fact, on March 31, 2016, an 11-year-old boy, John Paul Rafael, was vaccinated. He was screened and assessed by a health doctor. And later on, by April 3, 2016, the 11-year-old boy developed diarrhea and fever, taken Tubaga Community and Medicare Hospital, Philippines, where he was diagnosed with amoebiasis. Now, Mr. President, the DOH, the DepEd, and the EILG collaborated in the major launch of the vaccine in Metro Manila on April 4, 2016. By April 24, 2016, 204,397 students have already been vaccinated, or about 73% of the target population of 279,393 students in NCR, Central and Luzon and Calabar Zone have been vaccinated. To date, they have already completed the vaccination process, Mr. President. That seems like good administrative, good enforcement of the DOH on the part of the DH and other agencies. However, it is so good that there was funds available about December, and suddenly they were able to discover that the government had 3.5 billion pesos in the DBM. It's not even in the DOH. That was suddenly available. And voila, Mr. President. All of a sudden, they will now use that for a vaccine that has not been priorly tested by the World Health Organization. And they really delivered it post-date. Now remember, we had an election in May 2016. 3.5 billion, Mr. President, is an awful lot of money. Mr. President, you know, I said this afternoon that 97% of our people, of our students in public school, Mr. President, have dental caries, may cavities. Do you know, Mr. President, ang doktor natin sa Department of Health na nakabudget kayo ay 243 dentists. That's for the whole country. And they use that throughout the whole education system of our country. 243. There was money available, and they could have used that to fund more dentists, even get casual dentists, pay them so that there will be regular checkups, if not hiring them. And I bet you, Mr. President, there will be an awful lot of children who will not be having not just gap, or teeth that that have fallen apart or have been taken out, but they will be healthier, because if you do not get good dental hygiene or treatment, that causes other diseases. And you can name them from cancer to any kind of disease, Mr. President. So the question lies is, how come when kailangan palang pwede magbulis, may pera palang available? Galing po ba yung pera niya sa DAP? Ang dami nakapilang humahanap ng pera para makakuha ng pera para sa edukasyon, para sa military. May marami-rami rin hong gamit na magagamit ang military dyan. Marami-rami rin hong magagamit na doon sa nutrition campaign. Sabi nga nung Department of Health Secretary kanina, they could add another 40,000 people that would be benefited by the nutrition campaign if they had used that money, or 3 times or 4 times the target that they had. Mr. President, the question is therefore posited before us in the Senate. Ito bang biniling ito, is this demand-driven or is this supply-driven? Mukhang supply-driven, Mr. President, because suddenly nagkaroon ng pera, naghanap ng pera na may bibigay sa isang kumpanya na perhaps, who knows, magaling naman, pero tayo nito, Mr. President. The Philippines now has the reputation of having done vaccination without pre-qualification by the World Health Organization, and we have become the #1 guinea pig in Asia. No country in Asia have utilized it. For that matter, in the whole world, only Mexico has done it in December 11 of 2015. Now, all of a sudden, because there is money available and a lot of people are asking money for our country, all of a sudden, may pera. At ito ay ginamit kagad sa mga estudyante natin. Without any prioritization. You are all aware of the fact that tayo hirap na hirap magpahanap ng mga yung sinasabing tinatawag na insertions. Alam nyo, sabi ng iba, mga PDAF, hindi raw pwede na ngayon, nahihirapan, and this is not a brief for PDAF. The point is, kung wala yung PDAF, mahihirapan naman yung ibang mga bayan na kung wala silang lakas sa Maynila, hindi sila magkakaroon ng tulay, hindi sila magkakaroon ng ospital, hindi sila magkakaroon ng kalsada or airport or whatever it is. But here you have a fantastic situation na itong Department of Health ay suddenly binayayaan ng Department of Budget and Management ng 3.5 billion pesos on a questionable vaccine that has not been thoroughly tested by our people. Lalabas ang results na siguro in the next 4 years, Mr. President, whether it works. In fact, somebody was telling me on the way out, sabi, dapat bago ginawa yan, dapat merong blood test yan to ensure that there is negative, zero effect dyan sa tinetest ng mga bata. Of course, that will require additional expense. But no! Tinira nila kagad yan. Ang usual test ng World Health Organization, my staff tells me, is about maybe 200 students muna. Ito po, 230 students, 1,000 students ang talagang tinurukan kagad nitong vaccine na ito. Wala po ko sinasabi na walang efficacy itong dengue na ito. The jury is not yet out. I do know that there are other vaccines that are now in the process of being presented to the world, and we might have waited a few more months to find out whether in fact magagamit natin yung vaccine na yan. There are rumors that 2 children died in the course of this. Pero sabi nila, not connected, to be fair, sabi ng Department of Health. And when I asked, was this totally necessary, I was met with stony silence this afternoon in the hearing ng Department of Health. Nobody could say, kailangan na kagad yan, o dapat na-test. Nobody wanted to speak up. Siguro nagkakahiyaan doon sa nakaraang administrasyon. I have nothing against the previous administration, but I do have something against the fact that when you have money, unang-una, the purse strings, appropriations must come from the Congress, Mr. President, as we all know. And if there's this much money, we have to put a stop to people playing God in our country and saying, we have 3.5 billion, kami bahalang maglagay ng pera. Dito, wala kayong pakialam, mga congressmen o senador, kami ang maglalagay niyan. Di bali na hindi na pre-qualify, di bali may risk, hindi bali tayo lang ang gagamit sa buong Asia, di bali na, kung ano ba sabihin nyo, basta. Yun na sinasabi, basta kami ang gagawa ng desisyon. And we don't know whether in fact something happened there. That is why I had to stand up here, because, coincidentally, I suddenly find out the French ambassador is coming today. And sabi ko, kaibigan ko yan. Nakita na kami yan doon sa Cebu. Gumawa kami ng mga bahay para sa mga tao na salanta ng Yolanda. Pero ba't bigla magkukan? Tama-tama, nakalagay po sa akin schedule, ako i-attend talaga ng health because there are other issues like blood that I raised today. But I also took the opportunity because I have been doing our homework since I became a senator, or even before that. I've been talking, when I went to Geneva, I was asked by doctors, Filipino doctors, what I would do if I was elected senator about the sudden dengue vaccine. And when I came back, a lot of people wanted to see me. In fact, I had a couple of meetings with them, and I was very disturbed about this. Sabi ko, hindi naman siguro gagawin ng Sinophil yan, sapagkat yan ang humahawak ng Pasteur Center. Louis Pasteur, of course, as you know, is the primary inventor of vaccination, especially rabies, yung mga rabid dogs, sila nagsimula. But, so far as I'm concerned, Mr. President, I think this is something that cries to the Senate to look into the matter, whether there has been some shenanigans on the matter. Certainly, we ought to tarry a little and ask people that if we have extra money, especially with the decision from the Supreme Court saying that even DAP is unconstitutional, especially since we're always the butt of these issues about PDAF and everything like that. I do not want to see our kids, more importantly, become the guinea pigs. That is the primary issue. And when somebody tries to make a fast break para magawa yung bagay na yan, Mr. President, I feel that I am duty-bound to rise and to obviate any questions of transparency, especially when the French ambassador represents the country that produces this drug coming to the Senate. I want to make sure, and I told, in fairness to the the French ambassador, I told him that I had already said that he was coming and that I wanted to be transparent about it, and that I may even rise on a question of privilege here, so that if they want to come in later on, if they want to be part of any hearing that we're going to conduct, they are welcome so to do. But the issue is we have again to ferret whether there is danger or there is not enough due diligence required that has been done, or whether there are other priorities that this money could have been made. But we cannot have all these people pretending and playing to be God and say 3.5 billion bigyan natin dito para makabili tayo ng dengue vaccine. So, Mr. President, that is my position this afternoon. I'm sorry I have to rise again, but, you know, I thought it was necessary for me to rise because of the supervening events that happened this afternoon. And I thank the Senate for their patience in listening to the presentation just made. I just want to say, finally, that the indecent haste that was given, that they gave attention to, is not fair to the Filipino people. You can have indecent haste. For example, when there's a major epidemic going on, or a pandemic, you can go into hasty actions. Although, as Napoleon once said, you must make haste. If you must make haste, you must make haste slowly. Even during times of urgency, you have to make sure you do your due diligence. But in this particular instance, Mr. President, I think haste may have made waste, and I'm not talking about money. Money can always be made, but kids being exposed to this kind of danger, that is unworthy of a country that we all love. Thank you very much, Mr. President, and God bless the Philippines.
Mr. President.
Senator Legarda? Senator Legarda, Mr. President, and then Senator De Lima wishes to be recognized.
Senator
Yes.
Legarda is recognized.
May this representation propound a few questions to the good sponsor who attended the hearing today.
Always, Mr. President, with the gentle lady from everywhere.
Thank you, Mr. President. So that it's clear on record, because it is my second year as a chairman of the Committee on Finance. And last year, I inherited the committee chairmanship from Senator Escudero. And before that, I was vice chair of the committee for 2 years. And just to put on record that it was not under my watch, neither was it, I think, under the watch of Senator Escudero, that there was a budgetary allocation of 3.5 billion or 4 billion, whichever is accurate, for that specific vaccine, which was not even, or which was newly approved by the FDA and funded by DBM, upon whose instigation, whoever is a proponent is, I'm not familiar with, and implemented within a span of less than 3 or 4 months. And so I wanted to put that on record. It was, I believe, an unobligated appropriation of other government agencies, which the Department of Budget downloaded over and above the Department of Health budget as an augmentation to their budget, which this representation as chair of the Finance Committee was not made aware of. That is what I understand. I will ask LBRMO. In fact, we will ask the Health Secretary to submit a report to the Finance Committee on how this appropriation was made available. So I wanted to put that on record, because without me clarifying this, historically this will go in Senate record, and as chairman of Finance, they just might put 2 and 2 together, and they might think, anybody in the future would say, oh, it's easy to pick apples and put an augmentation, and maybe it's the chairman of the Finance at the time. So may I know from the good senator from Olongapo in the Philippines, what year
was the allocation made? And was this a continuing appropriation of what year? When
This
was
is
it implemented?
2015, Mr. President.
2015.
The
And
eve of the
implemented,
May elections,
and implemented in April
April 2016, Mr.
of
President.
2016, yes. I am certain there must have been bidding insofar as the vaccine was concerned.
Mr. President, that is what I want to find out, because I don't think there's really an accepted vaccine recognized yet for dengue. There have been noises about Malaysia having one, and there have been other companies that are claiming that they have one, but something like this should have deserved more inquiry, more perspective should have been done to find out whether in fact we're going in the right direction. And I believe, Mr. President, the gentle lady is as usual very prescient, because in fact that is correct. We don't want the gentle lady to be accused of coming up with an insertion that she is not responsible for, because that is how it will be made to appear. They had to get it from some money that suddenly got freed up, or could be DAP. They have to tell us where that money came from and how they managed to be able to release that money to an agency at the last 2 minutes of the last administration. I don't mind. If it went properly, you will hear no squawk from me. I try to be as fair as possible. But if this was done post-haste, in violation of all norms of due diligence, especially extraordinary due diligence should be required here, because this is the health of a country, whether this is the most appropriate use of the money. Like I pointed out, there are only 243 doctors attending to the patients, to the students of our country, and yet they don't even get dental treatment properly. I think these are just questions I'd like to ask, Mr. President.
Yes, and also to assure the good gentleman and to assure the body that in the 2017 NEP, there is no provision for this dengue vaccine. Neither will there be in the GAA of 2017 unless someone tries to amend it and make it his or her budgetary amendment, which I think the chair will not accept because it is still on the process of being validated, while it was approved by the FDA in December of 2015. The WHO has only piloted it, I believe, first time in Asia, in the Philippines, in certain areas, and in Mexico, I think. But I think Senator Gordon is in a better position to know more about this dengue vaccine. In fact, there are some articles about it, researches on this. I will no longer base it on. I will no longer comment on the controversy surrounding this dengue vaccine, but just to assure you that it is not in the present year's budget or in the future budget. That's it.
Perhaps, Mr. President, this will help. This is a pre-qualification flowchart, which requires almost 13 months before it qualifies. This was not done. Pre-qualification that should be done in 3 months includes many things, from submission of application letter, vaccine a priority for the recipient, reject application, acknowledge acceptance of intention to submit, product summary, screening, etc. That's just 3 months, Mr. President. The rest will take another 9 months to approve. So obviously, this was done with, undue speed. So, Mr. President, in addition to that, there are also provisions here that I would like to read, if I may. As soon as PSE is accepted and when the pre-qualification procedure described in Section 3 is applied, who will request the manufacturer to submit an appropriate number of samples between 25 and 200, depending on the vaccine type and presentation offered, of 3 to 5 final lots for independent testing. Who will then send the vaccine samples to the contracted laboratories for the initial testing? Mr. President, I submit that this has not been done. The expected time frame for testing from the date of receipt of the samples by who to the finalization of testing by who is 3 months, Mr. President. And if you go on, they will require another 9 months before this is completed. I am not, again, I repeat, I do not want to shoot from the hip. We are merely asking questions so that we could actually do our own due diligence on the matter, whether we are indeed protecting the resources, the very scarce resources of this country, and whether we are doing it to protect our children and to be able to make sure that the appropriation is properly done and that the money, the object of the money, will indeed be benefited by it and not even be harmed by it.
Yes, Mr. President, it has been confirmed by the LBRMO that this was part of savings, and the augmentation on the Department of Health budget to procure the dengue vaccine was approved, supposedly by the Office of the President, because it was an augmentation of what Congress approved as their budget. Thank you.
Wow. So there you go, Mr. President.
Senator De Lima is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. President. Just one point, if the good gentleman or our esteemed colleague from Zambales would... yield.
Willingly, Your Honor.
Is there an insinuation or an allegation here of some anomaly or irregularity in the whole process? I just need to understand the very issue at hand. I don't think, am I correct in saying that there is no issue on the propriety, necessity, or desirability of addressing the problem of dengue? I suppose there's no such issue. So the issue at hand is on the process. We need to understand first, what was the procurement process adopted? Was there open and public bidding, or is there one of those other modes of procurement other than open and public bidding?
On the contrary, Mr. President, if the gentleladies finish with their question, the issue of appropriateness is whether this was indeed a safe product to utilize.
Okay. So there is an issue on that?
Yes, because
Okay.
safety is an issue. Safety is an issue. And then the process is also an issue. The source of the money is also an issue. The process of releasing the money, the process of approving the product, and making sure that the country is well assured that this product is indeed well worth the effort to try and save more lives, or whether this is in fact the priority that we should do. Or was it done because there was money that was left behind and we should just spend it para hindi naman masayang magamit pa natin sa kampanya sa darating na Mayo. It can all be that, Your Honor.
So a number of issues are being raised
Yes.
here. I just needed to ask that for better perspective and for better understanding of the matter. So a number of issues are in fact being raised here that would warrant a further inquiry.
Yes, Your Honor.
Is that the point of the
Yes, Your
distinguished
Honor.
colleague from
Yes, Your Honor.
Zambales?
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Oh, we have a new Senate President right now, and I believe that is Senator Angara, and he was quite, very, very energetic discussing with Senator Gatchalian a while ago. I'm sorry, Senator Villanueva.
I requested for the chair to preside over Senator Gordon's speech because he's always scolding me when he's chairing the Blue Ribbon and Justice Committees.
Well, this is your chance, Mr. President. I move to refer the speech of Senator Gordon to the Committee on Health and Demography, secondarily to the Committee on Finance.
Any objection from the body?
Mr. President, I would like to refer it first to the Committee on Rules for further study because there could be a matter of accountability here of public officials.
What does the majority leader say?
Well, I withdraw the motion, Mr. President, and in that case, accept the proposal of the gentleman. I move to refer the speech to the Committee on Rules.
There's a motion to refer the speech of the gentleman from Longapo to end the interpellations to the Committee on Rules. Any objection from the body? There being none, the motion is hereby carried.
Mr.
Majority
President,
Leader? Senator Gordon. Yes.
Just a point of information, I would not have had the courage to come up here on stage right now before everybody here without the support of Senator Nancy Binay, who was really chagrined, very, very, surprised at the very, very, strange way the matter was undertaken. In fact, I even told her, you may be, if you do this, you may be risking, your political re-election in a particular area of this country. And she said, courage is always there, but God is with us. So that's the important thing here.
Thank you, Senator Gordon. Majority Leader?
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, may we recognize Senator Joel Villanueva on a matter of public interest also, Mr. President?
Yes, the gentleman from Bukawi, Bulacan, is recognized to speak on a matter of public interest.
Thank you, Mr. Majority Floor Leader. Thank you, Mr. President. Magandang hapon po sa ating lahat. I rise today on a matter of personal and collective privilege. Gusto ko pong simulan ang kwento ni Carlos Miguel Francisco, 23 years old, tubong Camarines Norte. Noong 2011, Ginoong Pangulo, lumuwas siya ng Maynila upang kumuha ng electrical engineering. Dahil sa hirap ng buhay, huminto siya sa pag-aaral at napilitang magtrabaho. Una siyang nakapagtrabaho sa tindahan ng sound system ng may 5 buwang kontrata. Nang ma-endo, napasok po siya sa isang malaking supermarket bilang isang bagger. Na-endo po ulit si Carlos Miguel pagkatapos ng 5 buwan. Sumunod na trabaho niya ang pagiging promodizer ng isang appliance store. Na-endo po ulit pagkatapos. Sinundan ito ng trabaho sa isang kantin bilang waiter. At noong Mayo po nitong taon, guess what, Mr. President? Na-endo pong muli si Carlos Miguel. May 2 anak po siya, kaya't palagi niyang pangamba kung paano matutustusan ang pangangailangan ng kanyang pamilya dahil palagi po siyang na-endo o walang permanenteng trabaho. Mr. President, pamilyar ang kwento ni Carlos Miguel Francisco sapagkat siya ang naging mukha ng endo o kontraktualisasyon sa presidential debate sa University of Pangasinan noong nakaraang eleksyon. Hindi po nag-iisa si Carlos Miguel na may ganitong kwento. Maraming iba pang manggagawang Pilipino ang biktima ng endo. Ang kontraktualisasyon ay trabahong may third party, manpower supplier, maaaring subcontractor o manpower service cooperative na siyang tumatayo o nagpapanggap na employer. Ang kanila pong trabaho ay trabaho ng mga regular na mga manggagawa ng principal employer. Ginagampanan nila ang mga ito katabi o kasabay ang regular na manggagawa sa assembly line ng mga pagawaan, sa daungan, sa paliparan, sa construction sites, o sa mga plantasyon ng saging, pineapple, at iba pa. Nakakalungkot nga, Mr. President, maging mga media outlets, talamak po ang ganitong issue. May mga manggagawang 5 o 10 taon na sa ganitong trabaho, paulit-ulit at hindi nare-regular. Kadalasan walang malinaw o kulang ang mga benepisyo. At higit sa lahat, may agam-agam sa tuwing nagtatapos ang mga kontrata kung may trabahong mapapasukan at mapagkukunan ng pang-araw-araw na pangangailangan ng pamilya. Stop Endo is the resounding call of the Filipino workers nationwide, Mr. President. It was echoed no less than by President Duterte as oppressive to workers. Being caught in the cycle of interment endo with no prospect of permanency, like Carlos Miguel Francisco, derogates the constitutionally guaranteed rights of workers, especially the right to security of tenure. But ENDO is not confined to triangular employment relationship in contracting, subcontracting, that can be remedied by introducing amendments to Articles 106 to 109 of the Philippine Labor Code as amended. To effectively address ENDO or contractualization, Mr. President, the entire set of prevailing non-standard or non-regular forms of employment in the country, which necessarily are precarious due to the uncertainty it has spawned in duration of employment, disguised or ambiguous employment relationship, lack of access to social protection, and benefits usually associated with low pay and substantial legal and practical obstacles to joining a trade union or bargaining collectively. Ito po yung napakahabang listahan, Mr. President, ng iba't ibang klase ng work arrangements na meron po tayo. Casual, fixed term, project or task-based, seasonal, homework, temporary agency work, part-time, subcontracting, at iba pa. Mr. President, in the Asian Development Bank Assisted Regulatory Impact Assessment of the Department of Labor on Security of Tenure in 2013-2014, it was shown that employers resort to short-term employment because of alleged strict employment legislation, which results to costly hiring and firing practices, high cost of doing business in terms of labor costs, large supply of labor force resulting from low employment growth, and the option for flexibility in employment. These non-standard, non-regular forms of employment were never intended to be endo or dead-end jobs to skirt strict employment legislation or avoid costly hiring and firing practices. It is a middle ground to provide employers flexibilities in planning work, addressing peaks or seasonality of demand, and retaining workers who are not in a position to commit full-time work. For the workers, it is a useful way of gaining work experience, opportunity to develop both job-specific and general skills, strengthen labor market attachment, and expand social and professional work networks. May address spatial mismatches, Mr. President, between where workers live and where their jobs are located. And lastly, it allows workers with care responsibilities to participate in the labor market through part-time work. Mr. President, the Philippine Statistical Authority, in measuring decent work in the Philippines using data period from 95 to 2010, indicated that precarious work remains widespread, noting that in 2010, nearly 15%, Mr. President, of all workers were in precarious work, or those forms of employment which are casual, short-term, seasonal, or work for different employers on day-to-day or week-to-week basis. In its 2014 Labor Force Survey, PSA data showed, first, the number of employees in precarious work as a percentage of total employment increased from 14.4% or 3.9 million in 2000 to 17.4% or 6.7 million in 2014. The same trend was observed in terms of their share in wage and salary employment. That is from 28% in 2000 to 30% in 2014. Second, in terms of gender, there are more men than women in precarious work, and their proportions were on an increasing trend. That is 2.693 million in 2000 to 6.718 million in 2014. Third, precarious employment was also more apparent in the industry, 30.4%, with more than twice as recorded in the agriculture sector, which is 16.7%, and services at 13.9% in 2014. We in the Labor Committee, Mr. President, have conducted a series of consultation meetings with various stakeholders. Our goal is to arrive at a balanced and more holistic legislation to address ENDO, with due recognition of workers' right to security of tenure and equally guaranteed constitutional right of enterprises to expansion and growth. Thus, the need to recalibrate Articles 106 to 109 and 294 to 298 of Presidential Decree number 442, otherwise known as the Labor Code of the Philippines, as amended. To this end, Mr. President, this representation filed Senate Bill 1116, among others. This bill proposes the following. First, clearly providing that the object of contracting or subcontracting is outsourcing of specific job, work, or service, and not labor only or manpower supply. Second, recognizing industry peculiarities through industry tripartite determined functions or standards on outsourcing. Third, in the absence of industry tripartite standards, application of the general standards as determined by DOLE Secretary after consultation with the Tripartite Industry Council. This bill also expressly prohibits the very oppressive practice of labor-only or manpower contracting. In addition, Mr. President, this bill proposes to simplify the classification of employees to merely regular and probationary, and outrightly classifies all employees as regular, including project and seasonal employees, except those under probationary employment. It also provides clear parameters for probationary employment which shall not exceed 6 months. I believe, Mr. President, that these amendments have to be enacted given the global production supply chain and rapid technological progress have redefined jobs and work arrangements beyond the contemplation of the 1974 Labor Code of the Philippines as amended. Safeguards have to be in place against blurring of employer-employee relationship, circumvention of the law on security of tenure, labor standards, occupational health and safety standards, and workers' right to self-organization and to assure employers of a level playing field. Mr. President, as I have said earlier, we in the Committee on Labor has been very busy in discussing this issue with various groups. The DOLE relayed their three-pronged approach in addressing this problem. One is stricter enforcement of labor laws, amendment of the Department Order number 18-A, and supporting amendments to the Labor Code. For the part of DTI, for their part, DTI shared its win-win solution where the workers of the service contractor are made regular workers of the service contractor. Meanwhile, representatives from various unions expressed their desire to completely prohibit all forms of contractualization and all forms of fixed-term employment. Representatives from the Joint Foreign Chamber expressed their support to the Philippine government's desire to end ENDO, but support the continuing legitimacy of permissible job contracting. I believe that this august body is committed to finally putting an end to ENDO through a law that will uphold the workers' basic rights and at the same time ensure a level playing field for business to grow. Mr. President, gusto po nating tuldukan ang paghihirap ng mga ENDO workers tulad ni Carlos Miguel Francisco, sapagkat malinaw po sa atin, una sa lahat, ang kapakanan at karapatan ng manggagawang Pilipino. Sabi nga po ni Pangulong Rodrigo Duterte na kung may panukalang batas para mahinto ang ENDO, pipirmahan niya po agad ito. Kung gayon, kailangan lang po ay magkasundo ang lahat ng mga stakeholders sa lalong madaling panahon sa mga mekanismo para matigil ang pang-aabuso sa mga manggagawa, mapatigil ang ENDO, at sa kabilang banda, mapatatag ang ating mga negosyo at patuloy tayong makalikha ng marami pang trabaho. Muli, maraming salamat, Mr. President, at pagpalain tayong lahat ng ating Panginoong Diyos. God bless the Philippines.
Wala na. Wala na.
Majority Leader?
May we recognize the Minority Leader, Mr. President.
Yeah. Minority Leader, Senator Recto is recognized.
No.
Thank you, Mr. President. Would the gentleman from Bulacan yield to a few questions from the Minority Leader?
With pleasure, especially coming from senior fraternity Brad.
Thank you, Mr.
Distinguished
President.
colleague from Batangas.
Just a clarification. I wasn't able to attend the hearings of the Labor Committee with regard to the issue of ENDO. But I'd like to get more information on this particular problem, if it is a problem, no, Mr. President. Mr. President, you were mentioning certain statistics in your privileged speech. I do think it is a privileged speech and not a sponsorship
No,
speech,
Mr.
right?
President. I'd like to clarify on that. This is a personal and collective privilege and not
Yes.
sponsorship speech. In fact, Mr. President, for the information of the body, we will be conducting another hearing this coming Thursday afternoon. This coming Thursday. Morning, Mr. President. This Thursday morning at 10 o'clock in the morning.
Yes. Mr. President, let's begin by asking first, ano ba yung problema ng ENDO? What is it all about?
Yung ENDO po na tinutukoy natin, hindi po ito yung contractual per se, Mr. President, dahil yung scheme ng contractual is a globally recognized scheme. At alam po natin na ito ay napakalaking concern dahil ito'y nakapagbibigay ng maayos at disenteng trabaho sa ating mga kababayan. Ngunit pumapasok po itong evils of contractualization at ito nga pong tinatawag na ENDO kung ang isang manggagawa ay na-hire after 5 months, i-renew lang po siya ng kanyang kontrata with the same job description, the same job specification. And in fact, minsan, Mr. President, kahit na hindi po ito yung the same person na hinire, pero ibang tao naman, pero the same din po yung scheme, the same job description din yung ipapatupad, dito pa rin po pumapasok yung endo. At ito yung, ang pinakamasakit po dito, Mr. President, hindi po nagkakaroon ng sapat na benepisyo ang ating mga manggagawa, yung pong Christmas bonuses, yung 13th month pay, yung health benefits, wala din po dito.
But if it is the same employee, so 5 months, 5 months, 5 months, let's say 15 months, then he's already eligible for the 13-month pay.
Supposed to be, Mr. President, but unfortunately with our in the past hearings, Mr. President, is still prevalent at marami pa rin po ang hindi nagkakaroon ng ganitong benepisyo.
And you say that the normal practice is 5 months, hindi 6, 5 months.
Before the 6-month period, because there's a law that states na pagka ikaw ay lumagpas na ng ika-6 na buwan, dapat ikaw ay irregular na.
Irregular. So it is not the same person, if at all.
Sometimes, Mr. President, it's the same person. Sometimes it's not. In fact, in other industries, like in the retail, Mr. President, ibang tao na po yung pumapalit. Opo.
Okay.
But
Kasi
again, it's the same job
If it's the same
description.
person, more than 6 months, kailangan irregular na.
Opo.
Di ba?
Opo. Tama po kayo, Mr. President.
Okay. And then you mentioned the bill, and in your deliberations in the committee, did you ever take up endo also in government?
That's a good question, Mr. President. In fact, we were surprised, not only in the Committee of Labor and Human Resources Development, because attending hearings like the hearings of Senator Angara on Civil Service Commission budget, we were surprised that there were about 600,000 job orders in the national government, and 400,000 of which belong to the local government units, Mr. President.
Okay, so kung 1.6 million ang empleyado ng gobyerno and 1 million ang endo, so mas malaki ang problema sa gobyerno.
I fully agree with the distinguished gentleman, my senior Brad, dun sa binabanggit po niya at yung gusto niyang tumbukin, dahil kung talagang ipapasaho natin at seryoso tayo dito sa usapin to end endo and stop endo, we should start by cleaning our own backyard. Simula tayo sa pamahalaan, sa gobyerno.
Hindi naman pwedeng gagawa tayo ng batas sa pribado at tayo hindi tayo susunod sa pampubliko, di ho ba?
I totally agree, Mr. President. Kaya po, doon sa mga nakaraang hearing, we called the attention also of the Department of Budget Management Secretary. Meron po silang ginagawa ngayon na pag-aaral at according to them, by November, they will be able to recommend yung following steps para i-address ang issue na ito, Mr. President.
Moving to the private sector, Mr. President, ilan ho ba ang labor force natin?
I don't have the exact figures right now, Mr. President, and I'll give the
definition
figures.
of the labor force is 15 and above, di ho ba?
Opo. At gusto ko rin pong banggitin, Mr. President, na isang malaking challenge sa atin yung pag-address doon sa third party na tinatawag. Yung mga contractor po, yung pong mga manning companies na kung saan bulto-bulto
Mr. President, if I may,
Opo.
because hindi na yun ang tanong ko eh. But let's go back to the question. Meron tayong labor force. Ilan yung, meron din tayong labor participation rate. Are you familiar with the labor participation rate?
Not so
It's roughly 65%. So, ibig sabihin, 35% of the labor force hindi naghahanap ng trabaho. Maaring sawa na sila maghanap ng trabaho, kaya hindi na sila naghahanap ng trabaho. Yung iba naman, baka masyado matanda na, kasi above 15 eh. So, ayaw na rin magtrabaho. So, roughly 65% ang labor participation rate. Ano yung unemployment rate natin ngayon? 6.5%.
6.5.
Roughly, diba? So, if I recall, you have 42 million workers today who are working supposed to be.
Yes.
Yun yung 65% of the, less the 6.5%, yun ang labor force natin today. For roughly 42 million. You mentioned a few statistics earlier. Ilan porsyento ng 42 million ang endo? You mentioned a few
Yung pong
statistics in your speech earlier.
binanggit ng Philippine Statistical Authority, nag-increase po yung percentage ng total employment from 14.4% or 3.9 million in 2000. Yung latest figure po is 6.7 million in 2014.
You're
Mr.
saying
President.
that 6.7 million of 42 million is endo?
They are defined as belong to the precarious working condition, Mr. President.
So endo nga yun.
Pwede nating i-consider, Mr. President, that they are also in the endo stage, Mr. President.
Okay. So kulang-kulang 7 million ang endo.
6.7.
And you mentioned, where are they located? I mean, what sectors of the economy? Industry. You
Senator
mentioned.
Gordon, where are you?
You
where
also,
you
mentioned, you also mentioned industry.
Iba-iba po, Mr. President, dun po
No,
sa mga
let's do it one by one.
nakaraang
Sa
ano po,
industry,
manufacturing.
yun na nga, manufacturing is part of industry, I suppose.
Yes.
So the biggest is in the manufacturing sector as far as industry is supposed.
Opo,
Is that correct?
Yes, distinguished colleague, and if I
And
may
when
ask-
we say manufacturing, are we talking about export or domestic?
both, Mr. President.
Both. So laganap sa manufacturing sector ang endo.
Yes, sir.
Okay?
And,
At
I have to-
kung
I have to-
itigil naman natin ang endo sa export-oriented enterprises, hindi ba kaya't maapektuhan naman yung export ng ating bansa?
Well, right now, Mr. President, ang ating ninanais ay to ensure na may tamang at sapat na pamamaraan para hindi madehado ang ating mga manggagawa.
No, I'm with you there. I'm with you there.
Yes,
I just
Mr.
want to
President.
understand the statistics. I'm with you there.
and the
We will
reason-
find the solution in the later on.
And
no?
the
Once we see the statistics also. So, ulitin ko lang ilan ba ang labor force natin sa manufacturing sector, tapos ilan naman sa kanila ang nasa export sector?
I'm sorry,
ba
Mr.
tayong-
President, I don't have the data.
Wala
with
pa yung
the-
data
with
doon.
the-
Okay. Pagdating naman sa service industry, ilan dyan ang endo? And then in what type of industries in the service industry? Halimbawa, retail. Halimbawa, there are certain industries na talagang endo. Halimbawa, Jollibee o McDonald's. Yung mga nagbebenta ba dyan o yung mga nagtitinda dyan sa Jollibee, yan ba, is that a professional career?
Yan po yung gusto nating tingnan maigi, Mr. President, and to answer the question
O yan ba ay, yan yung mga unang trabaho ng mga nag-aaral sa kolehiyo?
Opo, tama po kayo.
Na hindi naman talagang pangarap ng labor
Na-
o ng manggagawa na,
na for long
habang
term
buhay
din
ako
siya.
magtatrabaho dito sa Jollibee o sa McDonald's.
Tama po kayo,
Di ba?
Mr. President. Kaya po kanina binanggit din natin na importante itong mga ganitong scheme kasi nagkakaroon po ng experience o work experience ang ating mga kababayan. Nagkakaroon din sila ng opportunity to
So
develop.
there are certain industries na talaga naman, katulad ng mga some retail establishments na ganyan, na talaga hindi yung panghabang buhay na trabaho yan.
Yes, Mr. President.
Di
And
ba?
we can also categorize these workers doon po sa sinasabi natin na probationary classification
Pero
of
iba
workers.
naman yung probationary. Ito, pangsamantalang trabaho, but iba naman yung kasi yung probationary, as I understand probationary, di ba?
Yes, Mr. President.
So there are certain industries na ganyan talaga. Halimbawa, gasolinahan. Yung naglalagay ng gasolina sa sasakyan mo,
Gas po.
yan ba dapat regular employee ba yan? Or yan ba normally talagang dinadaanan?
If you will ask me, Mr. President, I would say that if I own
As
a gas
examples,
station,
yeah.
they should be regular, right?
So,
Mr.
kahit
President.
65, 60 years old na,
Yes, Mr. President.
na gusto niya maging gasoline boy siya.
Yes, Mr. President, and even if at times na kunyari ho, summer o seasonal yung kanyang trabaho, I would have a contract with the employee na itong 3 o 4 na buwan na ito, mas kailangan kita dito ka regular. Pero outside the 4 months na kasunduan natin, hindi ka regular. But just the same, Mr. President, ang
Di parang endo rin yun.
akin, but you will be getting your benefits,
Ay, di,
including
wala akong
13-month
problema
pay,
with the benefits,
etc.
and we can talk about that later on sa legislation. All I'm trying to make is that there will be certain industries na talagang hindi mo matatanggal itong
Agree, Mr. President.
practice na to, di ba? Posible, no? Now,
Agree, Mr. President. And
what
dyan
is the
pumapasok
age
yung
bracket
outsourcing.
of ito mga, para maintindihan natin? And where are they located? So we spoke about the certain industries, di ba? What about regionally? Do we know where they are? Are they in Metro Manila? Are they in Southern Tagalog? Are they in Visayas? Are they in Mindanao?
Iba-iba po, Mr. President. And we asked this question sa Department of Labor at sila po mismo ay tumutulong sa atin para balangkasin itong napaka-challenging issue na ito. And
No, I'm just asking for
yes,
the
Mr.
data,
President.
the information. Would you have that data?
Yeah, I don't
Where
have
are
right
they?
now,
Yeah,
Mr. President. I just to
Thank you.
point out also, Mr. President, yung pong tinatawag na tripartite arrangement na kung
We'll
saan-
get to that. We'll get to that.
Apa.
Okay, so the next point is, anong edad naman? Karamihan ba dito, anong edad? Meron ba tayong data sa DOLE, sa... Would they have the data?
I will furnish the
Okay.
data, Mr.
So
President.
maybe the committee could furnish us the data so that we
I
can
will.
help you craft
Yes, Mr.
remedial
President.
legislation also on
Yes,
the issue.
Mr. President.
Together with, kung babae ba yan, lalaki, anong
Mas
edad,
marami
what
po yung
sector, where are they
kalalakihan,
located?
Mr. President.
Mas marami.
Mas marami.
So at the appropriate time, you could provide maybe the members of the minority
Definitely, Mr. President.
information and data regarding this issue, so we could help the
Thank you,
majority
Mr.
craft
President.
legislation on the matter.
Thank you. And again, I'd like to invite our minority leader to join us this coming Thursday morning for the
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank
hearing,
you.
Mr. President. Thank you.
Majority Leader?
Mr. President, the labor guru of the Senate wants to be recognized. This President Pro Tem.
The big man of the Senate is recognized.
Yes, if the gentleman from Bulacan will yield just a few questions, just to set the framework upon which this debate can be undertaken also in the committee. As I understand it, the bill is not yet before us.
Not yet.
It's being discussed yet in the committee. So I stand up here and ask the gentleman to yield to a few questions, just so I can put into the record some framework upon which I would like to see the issue tackled on the floor.
More than willing, Mr. President, especially coming from the guru of gurus
No,
and the former
I am not a guru.
Labor Secretary.
I just
Senator,
ordered,
Villar.
during my time as Secretary of Labor, I ordered the biggest bank in this country to absorb 200 people because of the Indo. Anyway, Mr. President, what is the purpose of this move against contractualization? I assume, may we know, just so we can have an idea of why this why this amendment is being pushed?
Mr. President, isa po sa pangunahing dahilan why we are pushing for this measure is the prevalent of this scheme. Ito pong mga 555 scheme. And I remember in the first hearing...
So therefore, the objective is provide security of tenure.
Definitely, Mr. President.
All right. Now, can security of tenure be achieved without, and at the same time, have a contractual setup in certain cases?
Yes, Mr. President.
All
I
right.
agree.
Therefore, it is not necessary that we now have to prohibit all kinds of contractualization just so you can have security of tenure.
Agree, Mr. President.
Okay, that's a good premise because I want to know for the record that the purpose is to provide security of tenure. And if you can provide security of tenure, there is nothing wrong with contractual workers.
Yes, Mr. President.
Okay, good. What about benefits? Is it also the objective of this amendment to provide benefits to our workers?
Yes, Mr. President.
And the benefits can be provided even if you are not a direct employee.
Definitely, Mr. President. Agree.
So what's the fuss all about?
Well, Mr.
Why
President.
are we going to end contractualization if we can achieve security of tenure and provide enough benefits and at the same time provide flexibility to the employer so that they can continue to do their business and provide employment to our people?
Definitely, Mr. President. But unfortunately, this is not happening right now. And
Yeah.
that's what we wanted to address, Mr. President.
So we can address that without ending the concept of contractualization.
Yes, Mr. President. I was very clear a while ago, Mr. President, that if you talk about the scheme of contractualization, it's actually a globally recognized scheme.
Because I heard the gentleman say that there will only be two kinds of employees recognized.
It's one of the proposals, Mr. President. We are not...
You are not adopting that.
adopting it, adopting that concept. We're still deliberating, Mr. President, in the committee level.
All right. So
And again,
as we said, Mr. President, we would eagerly await the proposal of the committee because we are just talking about principles here.
Yes.
When we see the actual amendment to the labor code, I think that there will be a more substantial discussion. And the minority leader already gave you an indication of what questions he asked. So if I were you, Mr. President, you better prepare for the questions of the minority leader. Thank you very much, sir. And
Before the gentlemen leave their restrooms, the chair would like to ask if senators would fall in the category of regular or probationary employees, because we don't have security of tenure, nor do we have benefits.
the
Senators.
The president is the highest contractually paid person in government.
we are all casuals.
Hey, seriously, Majority Leader?
thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, Senator Drilon, Senator Recto. Thank you.
Mr. President, I move to refer the privileged speech of Senator Villanueva to the Committee on Labor.
There is a motion to refer the speech and the interpellations of the gentleman from Bulacan to the Committee on Labor. Any objection? There being none, the motion is hereby carried. Majority Leader?
Mr. President, I would like to manifest a correction. In the Joint Congressional Oversight Committee on the Official Development Assistance under Republic Act 8182, we'd like to replace Senator Legarda with Senator Gordon in one of the members. As one of the
The
members.
motion of the Majority Leader is hereby noted. Yes.
Thank you. Now, Mr. President, for other manifestations, pursuant to Section 26 of Republic Act 10121, or the Philippine Disaster Risk Reduction and Management Act, and Section 10 of Republic Act 10349, or the revised AFP Modernization Act, I'd like to manifest the following members of the Senate to the Congressional Oversight Committee on the Philippine Disaster Risk Reduction and Management Act. For the majority, Senator Gregorio Onasan as chair, members Lacson, Soto, Legarda.
So noted.
For the minority, dalawa minority mo? Disaster risk reduction, dalawa minority mo. Recto. Sino na? Escudero and Trillanes for the minority, Mr. President.
Noted, once more.
Okay, for the Congressional Oversight Committee on the AFP Modernization Act, Senator Gregorio Honasan as chair, members Lacson, Soto, Legarda. For the minority, AFP Modernization. Dalawa. Trillanes Recto, Mr. President.
The manifestation of the Majority Leader is hereby noted.
Thank you, Mr. President. Upon the request of Senator Laila de Lima, after getting the approval of Senator Poe, the principal author of Senate Bill 159, entitled An Act Implementing the People's Right to Information and the Constitutional Policies of Full Public Disclosure and Honesty in the Public Service and for Other Purposes, with the consent of the Chamber, I move that Senator de Lima be made co-author of Senate Bill 159.
Any objection? There being none, Senator De Lima is made a co-author of Senate Bill
Thank you.
159.
Mr. President, I move that we adjourn the session until 3 o'clock in the afternoon of Wednesday, October 12, 2016.
Any objection? There being none, the session is adjourned until 3 o'clock in the afternoon of Wednesday, October 12, 2016.